I'm Aaron, and in our TED Talk, we will be discussing sweatshops.
So what are sweatshops? Based on our overwhelming amount of research, we have determined sweatshops to be a place where people sweat excessively. I'm just kidding. Rolf, can you please explain to us what sweatshops really are?
Gladly, Nathan. Sweatshops are a common labor practice within third world countries. In these factories, workers endure harsh working conditions, prolonged hours, along with low wages.
I would like to add some information about the workers' safety risks. The excessive work hours increase the exposure to dangerous machinery and harmful chemicals. It also disrupts their circadian rhythm, which disrupts their sleep schedule and leads to exhaustion.
Investigations regarding the safety of workers have discovered that most companies have used toxins such as banana oil, which is a toxic liquid commonly used in toy factories.
Workers develop chapped fingers from a lack of safety gear, such as gloves and masks, to protect them from direct exposure.
Is it that hard to provide gloves and masks for workers? Through various investigations, it has been found that sweatshops have violated numerous UN Declaration rights and almost all of the Chinese labor laws.
It is evident that although these factories are incapable of providing simple protective gear for their workers, they have expressed a lack of obedience to at least follow some labor laws, however violated all of them.
Not some, not few, but all. Guys, would you like to tell our lovely audience some of the violations these factories have committed?
Certainly. So, of the UN Declaration of Rights, the sweatshops have violated Articles 1, 4, 22, 23, and 25.
In Article 1 is being violated as workers are not treated fairly as they are exploited for cheap labor.
Article 4 is involved when investigations report that factories use children as workers, some being abducted or sold to the factory in early age.
Articles 22 and 25 were violated when corporations denied workers' rights to social insurance and viewed them as a liability when they were incapable of working.
And at last, Article 23 was violated by sweatshops as managers prohibited workers to form trade unions and challenge their rules. This is a basic right that should be instituted in all working establishments.
We now have an activity for you to demonstrate our next point. With the half sheet of paper or post-it that we handed out to you, please write a brief complaint about how the project could have been improved.
You have 30 seconds. You're editing this part after.
How are we going to edit it in? Just
I will now collect all your complaints.
Now you may be wondering what just happened in this demonstration. Imagine in a sweatshop your complaint box was a trash can. The employers claim to send any complaints to the corporate executives of the company.
However, reflective of a typical trash can, your complaints will just end up in the garbage.
After discussing all these violations to labor laws and rights, don't you think there's a reason why this is such a concern?
Sweatshops have shown that companies have been willing to exploit their workers for cheap profit in order to gain the benefits of their products. Their aim is to provide for the consumers at the expense of the massive workers that help form their industries.
The rural and urban citizens are often forced to look for job opportunities in these industries because there are no other means of work that is regularly available to them.
Although guaranteed a job, many withhold the rights that would be obtained in a more privileged profession.
Some may find it hard to grasp the concept of being withheld the rights, because for some, such as in first world countries, being denied the Wi-Fi password or getting your phone taken away is apparently a form of cruel punishment.
There is an overwhelming quantity of companies that have been known to use the sweatshops to manufacture their products. Some of these companies include Hollister, Under Armour, Disney, Apple, and Calvin Klein. The list goes on.
Even though we recognize these major brands, it is the suppliers, not the major brands, but the suppliers that are origin of these sweatshops. It is the association between these companies that form the expanding sweatshop industry.
To gain better insight into how significant this industry is, we've realized the observations made by a former NYU student who worked over summer voluntarily in an undercover investigation to observe the working conditions of workers in Apple factories.
In his experience, he discussed how a lack of back support from the chairs he sat developed extreme back pain throughout the entire day.
In addition to the uncomfortable working conditions, Zhang was cramped between numerous people within a small space that was lit with reasonable lighting.
A lack of proper housing also contributed to the declining working conditions. Workers were forced to share a room with 8 other people. 200 people used one bathroom as there was only one bathroom per floor. Their daily routine consisted of work and sleep.
Of each of the housings, Zheng worked in station 26, where his task was to fasten one screw per phone. The total amount of phones he helped produce every single day was 3,600, meaning 3,600 screws per day.
Each of the stations contributed to the process of creating an entire phone. Each inside tasks were repetitive as they were given only one job for the entirety of their career.
Due to high production goals, workers were prohibited to talk, move, socialize, and entertain themselves with distractions.
Failure to follow the instructions or meet the requirement for their daily task would result in various punishments based on the severity of the setback.
The managers of the sweatshops are prone to bouts of anger, especially caused by violations and underperformance. Some would even yell and stop the entire production line just to yell at one disobedient worker.
Some people are under assumption that sweatshops only exist in underdeveloped countries to provide lower class income jobs for the workers who suffer from extreme poverty. However, this is also apparent in first world countries such as the US and Canada. Investigations have reported migrant workers, especially women from Mexico and China, working in these factories.
The U.S. clothing factory is an industry that employs 200,000 people, with the greatest concentration forming in major cities such as Los Angeles.
Alone, there are 62,000 sewing and cutting operatives in LA. Other major cities such as New York and New Jersey employ roughly 30 to 40,000 migrant workers.
However, these are only an estimate on the reported sweatshops, meaning the number could easily be higher due to unregistered factories.
A frequent method illegal garment workers use to convince their workers to apply for a job is through a practice known as wage theft.
Wage theft is when employers violate minimum wage or exceed the overtime hours established by the labor laws and withdraw additional wages that are owed to the workers. Some statistics estimate that 90% of garment workers in LA do not receive payments for overtime hours even when they exceed the requirement by over 40 hours, with some being paid less than 60% of the minimum wage.
Migrant workers take advantage of any reports filed against the companies because they see that any unhealthy conditions or unfair practices is worth taking a risk because the fines will be placed on the businesses rather than themselves.
As efforts to bring awareness about sweatshops in recent years, we've discovered that more people are willing to pay a higher price for items that are not produced in sweatshop conditions.
It can prove difficult to determine the location where some products are produced, but these companies are made especially when consumers are favoring to seek items that originate from fair trade, meaning that people are appealed to products that can rely on as something produced by workers under fair conditions.
Consumers have contributed largely to the reforms that are imposed to apply pressure to these retailers. Changes within factories are motivated by the demands to seek international agreements, such as American and European apparel companies. Some of these changes include upgrades to safety and fire information and provide better housing and refined working conditions for the workers.
Thank you for listening. This concludes our TED Talk.